Labdien and tere! My name is Sanitas Jembergas. I am editor in the Baltic Investigative Journalism Center in Baltijā, and with us today is our colleague and friend and partner in crime, Holgera Rūnemā, who leads Delphi Investigative Journalism Desk. Tere, Holger, and thank you for not saying no, as you did to Rheinmetall as a country.
Tere, Sanita. Nice to be here.
So what we are going to talk about is our joint investigation by Baltijā, Delphi, Estonia, and Lithuanian public broadcaster about how German arms giant Rheinmetall entered the Baltic market. This is the first investigation of this kind, and we will be speaking in English because that's the only common language we have, even if you all think that we outside Baltic speak the same language, we actually don't. Anyway, Holger, this has been a long time in making, so remind me, how did we came to this story?
I think there were like many things that caught our eye already back in I don't know, in summer or maybe even a year ago, because we know that the Baltic states are NATO's on NATO's eastern flank. We know that we need to ramp up our defenses fast because we know that Russian aggressiveness isn't going anywhere. And one of the key factors to prepare our defenses is how much you are capable of having like these large artillery shells, 155 millimeter shells that have been in a very important role in Ukraine, for example. And on the other hand, we know that European countries and NATO in total has had a very low capacity to build or manufacture such shells. So the first question that emerged, one of the first questions that emerged was that, like, how can we ramp up the production? And then all the Baltic countries started going their own way and trying to lure the investments into the country.
And this is what the investigation is about, because it wasn't known before. Latvia and Lithuania accepted Rheinmetall immediately on almost whatever conditions were offered, because they wanted these factories to be on the land. And Estonia said, no, we are going to have an open competition. So what have you learned from this investigation, Holger, what you didn't know before, and which kind of leaves you questioning the story or the substance of the story?
Well, the first thing that I learned that there is still some nice bit of Baltic competition going on between the states. But as we can find out from the story, is that the Lithuanians knew that they needed to be the first ones to strike a deal with Rheinmetall. Even though I think that on the Baltics, on the northern side of the Baltic countries, at least here in Estonia, we didn't quite see it as a competition. And that we can also see that Rheinmetall is very open to build the 155 millimeter factories into all countries. But what did we learn? We learned that it's not a buyer's market, it's a seller's market. So if you want a large company to come to Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania to build a new, very expensive shell factory, you need to pay a lot for it. Companies like Rheinmetall can dictate the terms, and we can see that the terms that they were dictating in Latvia's and Lithuania's case seemed to be quite strict and harsh.
Yeah, because what we found out is, and how this story goes into a bigger European picture, is Rheinmetall is a company which is growing very rapidly, this ability to produce these shells. So they have concluded some sort of agreements with Ukraine, with Hungary, with Latvia, Lithuania, Bulgaria, Romania, and others as well. And it's only about these shells. So basically, they are doing what the business is doing. They're ramping up production. But in our case, what's happening is they are using our fear and the need to have these factories to say, we are majority shareholder. You have to buy back a certain amount of the shells. And at least Latvians say, this is going to be economically profitable. So we are going into this with very big investment from the countryside because we believe it's going to be profitable. And to be frank, Holger, what made my job difficult in this case is this is a situation with very many unknown variables. Like, how does the war in Ukraine end and when it ends? Because that will kind of change how much shells Europe needs, so we don't end up with a pile of shells somewhere rusting close to the border. We don't know, as with the military budgets, what the conditions will be, because it's secret. And there is some point in it, but it's just, you can't compare properly, like what the cost is going to be in the market and how we are going to buy it, because it's going to be a secret. And the third thing is, it's really changing very rapidly, the whole thing around us. And it's just, in this fluid situation, maybe the old rules doesn't work, but mathematically, I think it's quite clear. Latvians and Lithuanians are investing a lot of money, giving a service and everything else, and buying back some shells. And Estonians are having none of it, and allegedly have enough shells already. So, am I reading it correctly?
Yeah, you're almost reading it correctly. And then just to put a number here as well, that by a lot, we say that both Latvia and Lithuania have agreed to co-invest somewhere around 130 million euros. For
a bit
which,
more, 130 plus.
Yeah, and for which both of the countries, state-owned companies, will get a minority share in the new factory. Plus, as you mentioned, the obligation to buy a certain amount of shells that the factory will produce. And I think the really important thing here is that the taxpayers are putting all in all, like 200, maybe even more billion euros into it. And the system is so opaque that we don't know anything. We don't know the terms that the minority shareholder will have. We don't know the terms, how the price will be calculated and the volume that the countries will need to buy back from the same production. So that, yeah, you can say that on the paper it looks profitable, and maybe in the end it will turn out to be profitable, but there is so little of public accountability, plus all the variables that will keep on changing, and that we are talking about such huge amounts of money. So I think this is what makes our first investigation into Rheinmetall the first one. And why I'm saying is that I am quite confident that Rheinmetall is only one part, one example of large-scale military investments that we will be working on, that we will try to get the details, that we will try to bring public accountability to, because the investments will keep on coming and coming and coming, and the opaqueness will remain there. And wherever there is a lot of money going somewhere, which isn't very transparent system, there is a trend that things tend to go wrong. And I think this is an important part to why we need to keep on focusing on the story.
I agree with you, but don't you have, I have this moment in investigation when, since you're talking about 200 million there, 250 million there, it's like 250 million actually. It feels like a Lego. It feels like a Lego, and you use this kind of perspective that it's actually a lot of money, and our budgets are growing so immensely, so quickly, and there are all kinds of rules, which is not competition, like your foreign minister mentioned rightly. You buy for the political reasons, like we are buying from Swedes, from Spanish, from Americans, from Germans, just to have them here.
So this is the question.
And how do you establish that it's economically viable? You can't really.
And how do you put a price to strategic political relationships? But yes, if you want to have Rheinmetall, as was the Lithuanian case, first of all, from the Baltic countries, but how do you attach a price tag? But how much more are you willing to pay to companies like Rheinmetall instead of I don't know, a more regular, more coming from a smaller or not so strategically important European member state producer? As I understand, the company that Estonia is negotiating with is from Turkey, and how do we compare the price? But how much would you pay? Would you be willing to pay in premium to a German or a French or British producer instead of a Turkish one? And what Estonia has decided this time, or at least right now, is that we are not doing that 130 plus million investment that Rheinmetall was asking. Rheinmetall would have been very happy to sign the deal in Estonia as well. But right now, Estonia has opted to go their own way, and allegedly the company that will start building the shell factory in Estonia will not get any special terms, any co-investment, any obligation from Estonian Ministry of Defense to buy a certain amount of shells. But we don't know how that will work out. It doesn't mean that the Estonian decision in the end will be the right one.
And this is a very complicated investigation in that sense that normally you expect journalists to be able to say, this is going to be better than that. And in this case, we just don't know. We say mathematically, this works better, but we don't know at the end what it is. So I think this is just one of the first ones we started, but we already see what the problem is going to be. First of all, it's very difficult to get any information because everyone says this is a national defense. And you can't really go, in depth into national defense because enemy will learn it. But then it's a lot of money. So there is public accountability. And there is all kinds of rules which are not market rules. So I think we just have to keep an eye on all this and try to do the job as best as we can, because at the moment, I haven't seen anyone doing it. And this is just the first factory. As you will see from our story, Lithuanians are talking about the second one.
Yeah, but also like what we can see from the German side is that earlier, apparently, Rheinmetall has been good in promising. And then sometimes it takes a little bit more time to materialize the promises into actual working plans as well. So that, of course, will come along as well. And like I mentioned, that Estonia is trying to go their own way. But that as well comes with other problems. That Estonian MOD has postponed at least 2 or 3 times announcing the contract and announcing the actual company who will build the plant. They were supposed to do it already back in November. Now it's end of February, and we still don't have it. And as I understand, there are like a lot of nuances and details, including like changes in the Estonian regulation, like how to test the shells that will be produced, etc., that are keeping on stalling it. And again, that every week, every month that we are like delaying actually getting the factory up and running, it's not good for our defense. It's not good for NATO's or European security.
Well, let's talk in 12 to 14 months when Latvian factory is supposed to be ready. We haven't signed an agreement yet, but in 12 or 14 months, it's supposed to start producing. So you will hear from me and Holger again, probably, and again, and again. And if you want to know more about the Baltic defense, let's plug the Holger's famous Substack. He's actually writing something in English about the Baltic defense. So you're all welcome to subscribe and come and see us again next time. Okay, Holger.
Yes.
Ciao.